Hi, welcome to another video on the beginner series for Rive on the Rive Dive School channel. We are actually going to be talking about every single feature of the file menu. And just in case you don't understand why you need to understand this, you need to understand every single feature of the file menu such that your workflow is actually going to be so much faster within Rive. Most times, some of the things that actually slow us down as we actually work on projects is a result of lack of proper complete knowledge of the tool that we're using, and having a proper basic understanding of what every single feature does helps you do things way faster. And in today's video, we're going to be doing justice to the file menu, and we're going to be covering every single hidden feature that you find there. So let's dive into that. Uh, so quickly, we have our file, Rive file, and then I'm just going to go ahead to create an output, and we have that. So your file menu is actually directly located at the top, the left corner of your control bar or your toolbar, depending on the terminologies. Then the first thing you have that's there is your file name, where you can basically uh, create, select, change the name of your file. So, for instance, I'm going to name this lesson 7, and I'm going to go ahead to save that. Notice that automatically the name of my file has actually changed to lesson 7. So next thing we're going to see is revision history, and this is only available for people that are actually on a premium subscription with Rive. So if you're in a cadet, voyager, or entrepreneur, you would have access to revision history. And what that basically does is it shows you like a snapshot in time of the work progress of your file. So let's say, for instance, you are working on a very on a project. The revision history is basically where you see where you've been at, at different point in time. And then the revision history allows you to be able to go back to any point in time, and you can restore that. And this is very helpful, particularly if you run into issues when it comes to the work that you're doing. Um, yeah, so basically that's it. I should, well, I don't know if you guys want to see an example, or like, I should just speak forward. It looks pretty straightforward. So on the right, you see a version, you see every single thing that has been done on this file, right? And I haven't done anything. Yeah, it's just basically the time where there was no output or something on the on the on the on the, you know, do you get it? Next, on the workspace or on the editor. Another thing you can do is basically, which is the same thing as this plus button, which is to create a new revision. And I'm going to go ahead to do that. So let's say we close that panel, because it's very important to close the panel. Um, let's say you want to save a snapshot in time of a project that you are working on. The next thing you want to do is create revision. So let's say you're at a critical pivotal point in your work, and you do not want your work to maybe get lost, or let's say, for instance, you're about to start doing more complicated things, and you feel like you need to save that point just so you could actually, get back to that exact same point, just in case you actually mess things up. You can actually create new revision, and basically, all you just need to do is click on create new revision and type the name that you would like to save your revision as. So let's say, for instance, you want to save your revision as uh, revision or latest revision, and click on save. It will automatically save that snapshot, and you can see it gives me a notification that saved last revision. Now, very important that this revision of things actually work like you have in games. So let's say you're playing your favorite game on PS5 or what have you, and you get to a point where you're like, oh, maybe things might get dirty at this point. Yeah, you could just quickly save where you're at, just so that let's say your character dies or whatever, you can respond at that moment. And this is literally like what revision actually does for you in Rive. So let's say we want to get that revision back. All you just need to do is click on revision history, and you can see the latest revision that I have that is already there. And all you just need to click on that latest revision and click on restore. And you want to go back to any other one, you just need to click on whatever you want and you click on restore. All right. So we do not want that, or that doesn't matter. Anyways, so let's move on. The next option is publish library, and this option is only available for people who are on Voyager or people who are on enterprise. And what the library is basically published to yeah, it's basically you publishing, let's say, whatever Rive whatever thing you've done within this Rive document as a library. And what that library means is that someone else can get to use your file without necessarily without having access to um the back end. They can edit your character, they can edit your state machines, they can edit your view models. It's basically like you're shipping out a version of a .riv file to them that they can then use within their own within Rive. Now, the that has a lot of benefits, because if you're working in a large company and one person needs to rely on the work of the other person, you can publish as library and send that to the person, and the person would be able to use what you have already done. And in case you want to make changes to that particular library file, all you need to do is come back to the actual file that was published as a library and make the changes that you like to make. So that said, we are moving on. So on exports, the export option, you basically have two export options, which is .riv and the .rev. Now the .riv file, uh you know it's your playback format. It's just like MP4, but a different type of MP4 file. Like, it's not an MP4 file, it's just like an MP4 file that has um other things embedded within it. It has state machines embedded within it. It has artboard embedded within it. It has view models embedded within it. If you have a script on your file, it has script embedded within it. So your .rv file is basically like it's like a more complex type of playback file, and it allows you to be able to have access to whatever state machines, that whatever you have done, whatever animations you have already made within Rive, within that Rive document. It allows people to be able to have access to it. But one thing you won't get access to in a .riv file is you won't get access to be able to uh, you know work on that character. Let's say, for instance, there's a .riv file. You can't maybe tweak the character within a .riv file, because it's a playback format. It's not a playback, like, it's a runtime format. I hope you get that. Just like same way you can, let's say, for instance, you have a PNG file, right? You could make your entire design within within Figma, and give that export that design. The moment you export it and it comes out as a PNG, there's nothing else you can do to that file, because it's already a PNG file. So if you want to make changes to the export, you have to go back to the actual file, your actual file within Rive. And brings us to the next export option, which is for backup, which is .rev. Now what this actually does, it's that it helps you to save the actual Rive file. So the everything you've done within your artboard is actually contained within your .rev file. Your .rev file is not a playback or a runtime file like .riv. It's basically that file that you can upload back into Rive to get back to where you were at when you are when you were working on your file or your animation. Now I'm going to quickly show you an example. Now, so let's say for instance I have a .rv file. I'm just going to go back to home, and I'll like, so let's say for instance I export this as a .riv file. I'm just going to go out to, I'll export both as a runtime file .riv and export a raw file. It's going to show me where exactly I want it. I'm just going to save it as downloads. Um, just to say this, because I am using, I'm only sharing my right screen. You're not going to be able to see what the screen that I'm currently on because it's showing my folders. But I just saved it in the, yeah. So I just saved the .rv file. Now I'm going to go ahead to export for backup, which is .rv file, and I'm also going to export that as well. So I've already done that. So so for you when you're doing, because I was just only sharing my Rive because you know, yeah. So because I'm just only sharing my Rive window, let me see if I can quickly make a quick change to that. Okay, good. I'm already sharing everything. So let's say for instance I come to for runtime here, export Rive file, and it's going to take me back there. I've already exported. You guys can't see this. This is the RV file. Then export for backup.rev here. It's the .rev file. So basically both of them are sitting down in my downloads. Right. So let's say for instance, just to show you what the how different those tools are. So let's say for instance, I want to bring out my .rev file into Rive. The key to doing that is actually coming to your personal files, and personal files is basically where you can have these things check, right? So you can upload your .rv file. You won't be able to upload your .rv file in your recent tab. Notice that here, if you are on home, you're on your recent tab. That's basically what it's showing, because whatever is here is basically what is here. So you have to come to personal files in order to be able to upload this. And I'm just going to open that tab for my downloads, and we have, this is the .rev file, this is the rev file. So I'm just going to click and drag my .rev file there, and notice it's loading, right? So let's try to drop our .rev file and let's see what's going to show. So you can see cannot import lesson 7.rev, import a rev instead. So that's to actually show you that that's not possible, right? So basically, our adbot is where it's at. So I just wanted to show you that. So let's just go ahead to close that, and that is that. For the export option, you see the option for runtime, for export all names and remove name exports, and I'm just going to basically quickly explain what that is so you can actually get it. So when you export the .riv file, uh, there are some certain things you don't have access to. And one of the things you don't have access to is the different layers that are found within your artboard, for instance. So let's say, for instance, you have a rectangle on your artboard and you export as a .riv file. When you hand over your file to the developer, the developer can just get this file and then do whatever, do this, get this rectangle and do whatever they want to do with it. However, if you want them to have access to this, all you need to do is right click that and click on export name, and notice that it puts the rectangle within a parenthesis. That means that um this rectangle is now available to be called by the developer. It is this is the get component method. Um, is that's what it's called, to get this layer and then do all sort of things with it. Now, of course, you may or may not still need this right now with Rive, but with the advent of data binding, a lot of these things are actually easier now. And one thing with um layers like this, exporting different names like this, is it actually makes your file bulky, right? So your file size is going to actually increase by when you also export names, right? So because of all these metadata and stuff like that. So it's always best to use data binding instead of like just exporting names. And if you want to remove all names, you have remove all names. If you want to export all names, you have the option to export all the names of all the different shapes or layers your within your Rive file. So that explained. The next one is convert data binds to relative and to absolute. And I just to quickly explain what relative and absolute binding is. It's just the way you set up your binding within Rive, and that's like dictates where your components get their attributes from. So let me just quickly show you an example. So let's say we have this artboard and we have a shape here, and I'm just going to delete all this stuff within my view model. Delete. Good. Let's create a new view model from scratch. Normal, and then I'm going to duplicate this by pressing. I can't duplicate. I can only create. All right, good. So under each one, I'm going to create a color property. Sorry, a color property, and I'm going to name this rec color. Good. Under this one, I'm going to create a color property as well. I'll name it rec color. Good. Now for this, we basically, so now that we have this, I'm going to duplicate this outboard so that we have outboard 2 now. And this outboard, I'm going to bind it to view model 1, and this other outboard, I'm going to bind it to view model 2. I'm going to select this and I'm going to bind this to the red color on view model 1, and I'm going to take this one and bind it to red color 2. Then I'm going to come to this view model, and then I'm going to change the color for red color to red, so that when I turn preview data bind, you see that this is happening. Of course, the reason why this is not showing it's just because of like glitch within Drive. So we have that done. So let's say for instance, so with the way I bound this, if you come right click and you click on data bind, update bind, notice that the property red color, of course, bind relative is turned on automatically, and that's because I have, if you come to file here, you have relative bind turned on. That means whatever data binding you do is going to be automatically a relative data bind. You can turn it on or turn it off by comes to the same file menu and clicking on choosing this. But let me just quickly explain what the relative data binding is. So this one is bound relatively, right? And what that means is that if I make this into a component, right, and I come to this artboard and I select this component, which is artboard, so and I place it here. Notice that even though this artboard it's red here based on what based on based on what it is bound to, it is actually red, right? But here it's actually black. Why is it black? The reason why it's actually black is because it was relatively bound. Now, what that means is that for this one here, it's basically looking at the view model, which is view model 2. Let me turn off the preview data bound, which is view model 2, and it's looking for this property color property named red color, and it finds it and it's red. Now, by the time I bring the same artboard component, I make it a component of this. He's also looking at this artboard, checking under the view model to see if he's going to find another file, um, another color property that is named red color. So that's what relative data binding is. Relative data binding is all about um um it's all about checking whichever view model you have. Like it's like a situation where your artboard, like, okay, let me show you for absolute now. So let's say, for instance, if this was absolutely bound, so I'm going to let's create another one. I'm going to create another view model, normal view model, and then I'm going to add the color property, and I'm also going to name that red color as well, just to show you. Then I'm going to duplicate this word, because I'm going to delete this. um I'm going to delete this, and then I'm going to make this. I'm going to say you update bind view model 3 now, and then for view model 3, I'm going to make the color good. All right, update bind good. Okay, and then I'm going to assign view model 3 good. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So that done. So let's say, for instance, now for this now, I'm just going to select this and update bind, and I'm going to turn off, right, relative data binding. So it's going to be absolute binding. Now by the time I bring this file over here, and let's say, for instance, I make the component. Right. The moment I bring this file to this output to this place, let's say I create output 3, I'm bringing it here. Notice that unlike this second component, it's not taking on the black shape that we have, because it's basically the same color, the same naming. It's not taking the color from the red color from view model 1. It's basically taking the red color from, it's trying to take the red color from the view model 3, but because it doesn't have access to that view model, right, it's gray, right? And that's what absolute binding is. Absolute binding is whatever view model you assign to me, whatever view model I'm taking, whatever property from, is what I stick to. I won't check the new view model to find the I won't check the new view model to find I won't check the new view model to find if there's a color property that is named the same as the, or I'm not going to check the view model to find if there's a property that is named the exact same name I was bound to. I'm always going to try to look for my view model, and if the view model doesn't is not there, then I'm going to switch to default. But for relative binding, if your view model is not there, it's just going to try to look for whatever other property that is named the exact same way the property you have bound is actually named to, and just switch to that instead. And I don't know if I actually explained it clearly, but if you actually need a clearer tutorial on that, you can let me know in the comments. Then I'm going to actually make an extra video about that. One way to override so that's just it. So that's it. So, but if you want the property of this, if you want this to be the gray that is here, basically all you just need to do is to turn this into like a stateful component, and it's going to be bringing it's going to be bringing it's the view model alongside with it into that um that that new in its new environment. So I hope that's actually helpful. If this sounds a little bit complex, don't worry. Uh, when we get to data binding, we'll like explain this a lot more. All right. So just so that you know, export options, you can at the runtime convert all data bind to relative or to absolute. Right, and of course when I select absolute, it you see this one automatically switches back. All right, so that said, let us move forward. All right, so next step is we have the options to share files. Now this is available for people who have other people within their what do we call it now, their workspace. So if you have someone else that you're sharing the workspace with, you have the ability to actually share files with them, and this is possible by just adding this file into a shared folder. Now I'm just going to give you a heads up about this. If you have a workspace within Rive and you want to add someone to that workspace, it basically means you're going to be paying for the person's subscription for adding the person to your workspace. So Rive treats it as two people on the same team. So if you're on Cadet and you want the other person to also be on Cadet, you are going to have to pay twice that fee for Cadet for having the person on your team. So if you're running like a big, um like team and you want everybody to be together, just pay for just add everybody to the same workspace and pay for all these people. But if not, you gotta you gotta maybe find other ways. So share the REV file, which is basically like the same thing anyways. So it's better you have your all your companies, all your teammates actually added to the same workspace than just doing your own stuff. All right, so let us move on. So next we have the option to generate embed URL. Now we will not be going into this because I'm currently on Cadet, and for you to be able to have access to this, you have to be on Enterprise or Voyager, right? So and I do not have access, so but it's just let me just explain what this is real quick. So in order for you to be able to use your .riv file in your project, you have to um put it on a server somewhere. So let's say for instance you're done with your .riv project and you want to embed it within your code. You have to upload it somewhere and then make reference to that file within your code. And a common place people upload their .riv file to is GitHub, right? But Rive actually has like a special feature where they can host your .riv file for you. All you just need to, is that URL, and then you send it to your developer, and then they just get the job done. But for people who are not on Voyager or Enterprise but need the same feature, all you just need to do is export your .riv file, upload it to GitHub, and share that link to your developer. It's actually that simple. All right, so moving on, we have the opportunity to publish the marketplace. So, in case you don't know what the marketplace is actually a place where you share your files and people are able to pick up your files, appreciate your work, and celebrate your work and also add comments. So it feels good for you to for other people or other right people to be able to test your work, see how you did it, and pick things apart. Like try to get to the nitty gritty of your project. It's also a good place for you to get your work seen. Right. Routinely, go through all the marketplace examples, and they pin some of the best examples so you can actually get your work in front of many eyes. So moving on from there, and basically just moving fast at this space. All right, so you can copy file URL, and what this means is every single file that you have that you're working on within Rive has a unique URL. And this is only useful for you. So it's not like you can copy your file URL and send it to someone else and then they'll be able to open your file. No, that doesn't work. So what does this actually help you do? So let's say for instance we have copied our URL file and we come to Rive file. All you just need to do is come to click on this button that is navigate to file directly beside your username. And then once you click on it, it automatically pastes that file, the copy that the file I've already copied in my URL, it's already there, and navigate. So it's going to basically show me where that file is in my personal files. So it comes in handy if you have a messed up personal files folder like mine. Basically have like tons of things going on there. So if you want to keep track of those files that are very important to you, you can basically just copy the file URL, save it somewhere else, and whenever you want to get back to that file, you can just copy and paste that if you want. So let's quickly get that over with. So Open Render Queue is really where there's a lot of juice. So a lot of people don't know that you can actually export a .mp4 file from your from your RAW file, and it's not only a .mp4 file. You can export it an SVG, you can export a PNG as well. All you just need to do is have whatever work you've done, and that depends on. And let's say for instance, I have a rectangle, and in the animate mode, let's say for instance, I just basically did this. Okay, good, and I just moved this file. Um, and let's say I moved it to this point, then I move it to that point back. Okay, Control Z. I'm just going to copy and paste, highlight, and then Control V. Then it goes back and forth. So let's say we add some easy bicubic ease into that. We have something that looks like this. Good. And if you turn on loop, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and stuff like that. Now, I don't know why you want to do this, but so let's say you're done with this and you want to export this out as a .mp4 file. You can just click on plus, and it will automatically add your timeline into this. Notice that it's showing you the name, and it's showing you where it's taking that from. It's taking it from artboard. If you have multiple artboards here, you can select which artboard, but because I only have one artboard, it's choosing that artboard. So if I can choose which one I want, whether or not I want to export the state machine, and which really comes in handy because a lot of people don't know they can actually export their state machine animations. So let's say for instance I have this timeline, and I actually want to export the state machine animation. All I just need to do is to click on play, and it's doing that for me, and I basically can export that as um I can basically export that um as a an MP4 file, and I then can choose to download that. So when I download that, you have this, and it's okay. So I have this, and then you can save it on your document. So timeline, whatever, timeline, whatever. That's what I'm going to name it. And you have that. Now there's probably a lot of things to actually do with the render. I'm still yet to mess a lot with the state machine and try to see what really can be done with it and how useful it is. But I'm sure it's actually really going to be useful, and I'm going to actually post future videos on that. So let us move on to the next one. So the next one we want to do, check. Next one we want to check is how to render queue. Of course, we've seen that. So open render queue just opens the queue, right? So if I click on open render queue, it shows me this. But if I click on how to render queue, it just basically add whatever I have. So because I'm just on the state machine, it's trying to tell me that, oh, I'm in design mode, so I can choose to whichever mode I have. whether it's animation or whether I want the state machine, whether I want to export the state machine. I really need to experiment with this state machine stuff, and definitely I'm going to share what my experimentation is. Now, so move on. Let us continue in that regard. So next is all viewports, and this is like the juicy part, the most juicy part of your file menu. So a lot of people don't know that you can actually turn off snapping. You can turn off snapping to pixels, user clusters, gizmo, and bones, most importantly, because you can be working in a project where you actually have lots of bones, and they just get so distracting to see and stuff like that. So you can basically turn off all these off. Inactive solos, which is very important, because there was this particular project where I was working um on bones, and a character turn around, and it basically had lots of bones within it, and there was basically in fact, matter of fact, let me show you. So I'm sure this project is going to be somewhere here. I just hope it is. No, it's not. It's actually in another workspace. So I just hope I find it. I just hope I find it. I just hope I find it. Okay, so it's really one hell of a weird project like that. We did all sort of like wow things on that project. I just hope it opens because it contains a lot. Okay, so so notice that you can see already like a lot of bones, right? And of course, different bones, right? Different bones and stuff like that. So because the upper torso is turned off, so if I turn the visibility on and I turn and everything, you can see it's so many bones, right? And that can get so like messy and stuff like that. So in case you want to get rid of all these different bones and you don't want to see them, all you just need to do is come to all and click off, turn off inactive solo. Look at how clean you know my file is, right? And then when you switch to the next one, it just switches to that bone. All right, which is actually quite weird. But of course, I could also switch back here and notice how really interesting and clean my that board looks like. And I can just switch like that. And it's so amazing, that you can actually do stuff like that. So that's just one of the benefit of inactive solos. So you can check out definitely all these viewports and experiment with them, see what you can do and what the limits to these things, and also you can turn on rulers, right? From whence you can drag guides, right? And also you can choose to come here and lock guides. So when you lock guides, it means you cannot move those guides. But if you unlock guides, if you unlock guides, you can basically move those guides now. So a lot of cool things that you can actually do within the viewport. So you need to get into there and experiment and see those things that you can do. Now, next is turn off use horizontal field drag. Now, by default, mine is turned on because I just recently turned that on. But what that means is if this is off, which by default is going to be off, notice that anytime you want to drag, let's say for instance, I have my guide, and this is not just about the guide. If you have a number on your view model property, yes, So we have a number here, and notice that the arrow is pointing upward and downwards. I can click and drag up and all that. But if I turn on use horizontal field drag, you can notice that it's now turning sideways. So I can drag it sideways and it's doing that. Of course, I could also drag upward and downwards to get the same effects, but it basically just adds to how smoothly I can do that. So for me, I just leave it on use horizontal field track. The skip runtime modal, when you turn this off, this is what skips the runtime modal is. So anytime you want to export and you see this, this is what the runtime modal is. So if I click on this, right, I go ahead to export my Rive file. Um, it basically just saves that option for me, right? Let's just hope it did that because I didn't go ahead to. Okay, yeah. So it did that. Skip runtime modal. So anytime I want to export again, I won't see that option. It just takes me to where I want to export my stuff. All right, so which you can't see because I'm only sharing my Rive window. So next we have the option to post component updates, and I'm definitely going to show you what that means. So let's say for instance we have two artboards, right? And this artboard, let's say we make it a component, and I come to here component and improve it, put it as a component here. So if I decide to move this up, right? Because post component update is turned on, you're not going to see as it's moving, right? But if uh uh okay, that's strange. That's really strange. I feel like a lot of changes have been made to how things function. Okay, so I'm guessing I need to probably reload my right file because it's currently showing me some things that I don't believe that's how things are meant to be. All right, and so yeah, so ideally, yeah, because Rive does these things sometimes. So notice that as I'm moving it, it's automatically changing, right? It's automatically changing, right? Good. But if I turn it off, I just move and nothing changes. I move up, nothing changes. If I come here, it's actually meant to now load that that stuff. But I take it that Rive is having so much of a. I mean, the Rive file is already having so much of so much issues already, and that's that's why it's misbehaving that way. All right. So if I decide to close it and turn it back on, which is very weird that Rive is actually behaving like that, notice that it's not. So yeah, with let me pause component updates. All right. So ideally, when I jump here, what's meant to happen is it's meant to now update, but it's not going to be updating as I was updating. Yeah, right. So you know, uh, she have it. Uh, all right, good. So let's just start about that. So we have enable layout animation. We are going to get into that by the time we start to work on layouts and animation. So the option of relative data binding is what we have actually clearly what I said clearly. I've explained in um previously. So that's just all there is when it comes to the file menu. The others are pretty much straightforward. You can check, the shortcuts and the documentation, the right community, and convert inputs as view models. We're going to get into that more when we actually look into data binding. For this tutorial, this is all there is when it comes to the file menu. I hope you found every single tip helpful, and see you in the next beginner's tutorial.